Welcome back, everyone. I'm Christopher Brannon with the Coeur d'Alene Public Library and the Cooperative Information Network.
And I'm George Williams. I'm the Next Search Catalog Coordinator at Northeast Kansas Library System.
And we've got another great video, actually a couple of videos coming up for you regarding permissions. But before we get into that, we are hosted by koha-US. You can find great resources for all your Koha needs at koha-US at koha-us.org. And you'll always find our videos in our video playlist on our Learn tab. In addition to finding our videos here, you'll find other videos that we've picked up over time and found useful. But also, we want to make sure that you know that if you search for us on YouTube, if you go to youtube.com/koha-US with no dash, you'll find all of our videos that we've recorded. We've got tons of videos, fun videos, meetings, but also training videos, conference videos. You'll find all of our playlists here, including our terrific every other Thursday training videos. The advantage of going to the koha-US site in YouTube allows you to subscribe to those videos. You can like our videos, let us know what you've liked. You can also comment on our videos, and we welcome feedback on these videos all the time. With that said, I'm going to hand this over to George.
What we're going to talk about today is a plugin, and we're going to do this in two parts. In part one today, I'm just going to talk about, I don't think we've ever talked about how to install a plugin, so we're going to talk about that a little bit. But this is the Batch Permissions Modifier plugin, which is something that I learned about at the koha-US conference here in Lawrence in September. And as just a complete matter of coincidence, right after I learned about this, we've had in the past year or two, we've had some security issues where staff have been terminated or left the library for one reason or another. Whenever that happens, we have to have, we have 51 libraries. We have to remind libraries to go in and contact us, and we can, help them update their passwords and make sure that after somebody's left, that that the system is secure. And we've had a couple of times in the last couple of years where staff members have been terminated, and then we've changed the passwords, and then the next day the account gets locked. And so we change the password again, or we reset it. And then like an hour or two later, the system gets locked again for that username. And because what's happening is somebody has been terminated and they're going home and they're trying to log in remotely. And so what I've always wanted to do is make it so that each staff member has a separate individualized login. So when somebody quits, you just delete their login. It's much easier than going in and changing passwords. But we've never done that because, I think I figured one time that it would be like 300 different passwords to manage, and setting up the permissions is only something that the NECLS staff can do, and it's tedious. And if some new feature comes along and you want to add that permission to use that new feature to 300 users, that's a lot of editing of permissions. Yeah. The batch permissions plugin, the batch permissions modifier plugin simplifies so much of this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Tools or Admin, Koha Admin or Tools. I'll just do this through the admin interface. And then I'm just going to scroll down, and on the left here, there's a administrative function called Manage Plugins. And koha-US on our site, we've got a whole bunch of plugins installed. And the koha-US, the Koha community plugins, there's some background that you need to know in order to use this. You have to have your Koha install set up to use plugins. And if you're self-hosted, there's a whole page for that on the wiki. of how to use the plugin feature. And if you just go to the Koha wiki and search for Koha plugins, you'll be able to find that. The plugins page also has a list of plugins that have been put on the Koha community wiki. And, you know, Bywater Solutions and Libro, PTFS Europe, BibLibre, and Fike Solutions, they all have GitHub repositories or with plugins in them that you can go download. GitHub or GitLab. Some of them are going to be GitHub, some of them are going to be GitLab. For this particular plugin, for the batch permissions modifier plugin, the easiest way to find it is on the plugins page. There's this search for plugins. We can just search for batch permission, and Koha is smart enough to go out into the world and search for the Koha batch permissions modifier plugin. It's a lot of things to say at once.
Yeah.
So I'm just gonna, once I've found that, all I have to do is click install. And there it is, the batch permissions, batch patron permission modifier. And over here on the far right, there's an action button, and it gives me options to run the tool, configure the tool, uninstall or disable. The configure option is the meat of the plugin. And in order to show you how to configure it, the first thing what we're going to do is we're going to just do the top part today in this video. We're going to create some template patrons, which I actually already created. So let me go to patrons and search for template. I created a template for, I created 5 templates. A template for a library director. And what you do is you just create a user, like any other user in Koha. You create an account. I gave all of these the name template, and the last name kind of defines the template's role. And then you go into permissions and you give the template the permissions that you want to give for that template. So in this case, you know, they can check things in and out. They've got staff access, add, modify, and view patrons, place holds. They've got some permission for the cataloging, manage patron fines and fees. They've got access to a few tools, suggestion management, and then these tools here. They can execute reports. They can they can modify staff permissions and passwords. They can create and edit clubs, and they can enroll patrons in clubs. So that's the set of permissions that I've given to this template.
Other than giving it a unique name, do you have to do anything special? Do you have to have anything else, like a special category or any special credentials or anything for this template?
You don't have to, but what I've decided in my system is that I've actually created a borrower category just for the templates, because that allows me to do something in the more advanced part of this that we're going to cover in the next video. So
Okay.
It's not necessary to do anything other than create a borrower and give them permissions. So what I'm going to do now is every borrower has a borrower number. So I've got this borrower number here, and I'm going to take it over to the batch permissions modifier configuration, and I'm going to put that borrower number in the template patrons input box there. And I can do that for all the other templates I created. Template assistant. template tech, template circ, template self-checkout. These are just ones I created as examples, but we've got 1714. The circulation is 1713. So I'm just gonna, I'll start with 3 and I'm just gonna save that. I can even do save and continue. So what I'm gonna do now is, actually, I just want to save. I'm going to go back now that I've saved it to the batch permissions modifier and go over to actions and run this tool. So what I've got now is I've got a drop down here with the templates on it. So I created that director template, the assistant template, and the circulation template, and I put that information in the top part of the configuration for the batch permissions modifier. And so if I choose the director template, then I can take a patron list.
And you didn't have to do anything to set up the patron lists in that dropdown, right?
I did.
It's just, well, I mean, did you, I mean, you've set up some lists with the word permissions in it, but is it just grabbing all of the lists?
It's grabbing the full list of patron lists. And what I did before we got together to record this is I created a bunch of lists. I created one called permissions assistant, permissions circulation, permissions director, permissions self-checkout, and permission technical services. But there's already a list in here called borrower list. And there's already a list in here called patrons with photos. This is our test server, so these aren't real patrons. But what I see in the second dropdown is patron list. And
So
this is just a list.
If you had lists, if you had like 30 or 40 lists in there, they're all going to show up in this dropdown, right?
Yes, and in my production system, I do have, I think I have like 40 some lists, and they all show up in this dropdown.
Okay.
It's doesn't filter anything based on what kind of list it is. So I've chosen the director template and the patron list. I'm going to choose the director patron list. And as soon as I click this button that says batch modify permissions, I have changed all of the people in this director list so that they have the director permissions. And I can test that by going to one of these borrowers. And I'm just going to go more and set permissions. And it's going to have the exact same set of permissions that that director template had.
Now, are these static changes or are they dynamic changes, or?
When you're using the batch permissions modifier and you're doing this manual part, these changes are static. So I can go in here and add other permissions once I've run that. And if I click on save, then this borrower will have those extra permissions that weren't part of that.
But if you go back and you run against that list again, it's going to convert them back to what.
If I go back to the batch permissions modifier, and I choose director, and I choose that same list, it's going to put all of those back to just the director permissions. There isn't a way of every time I run this, it's going to manually update everybody on that list.
Cool.
And so, I haven't updated this page yet, but I've got the manage EDI fact and manage basket and order lines. If I reload, if I go back and reload, I think it's going to lose one of those acquisitions permissions.
Yeah.
And so that's the basics of how this works in manual mode. So the batch permissions modifier, you create templates, and then you go to the patron list, you tell it to modify everybody on that list to match the template that you're using. And that in and of itself, for me, is a huge time saver, because it used to be when something new would come along at all of our libraries, we have like each library has an account that's branch name director, branch name tech, branch name circulation. And so if there was a new feature that I needed to add to all of the branch people for their circulation, tech, and directors accounts, that meant that I had to open 153 different borrower accounts, staff accounts, and go in and modify each of those.
Yeah.
And that was really tedious. But now I can take all of those tech accounts, put them into a list, and then update the template, and then manually run that process. And in 2 seconds, it will update all the accounts that are in that group. And that is just an enormous time saver for me.
That's awesome. What a great tool.
Yeah. And there's a more advanced set of features with this tool. And so we will talk about that next week or in 2 weeks.
Awesome. All right.
So happy Thanksgiving, everybody. I think this will air on Thanksgiving Day.
Yes,
So
I'll probably post it a day in advance just so I don't have to get out on a Thursday to post it. But yes, that's awesome. And wow, I'm looking forward to our next video, because that's going to be a fun one.
yeah, it'll be fun. There are some advanced features with this tool, and we can talk about how great some of those features are and how potentially problematic some of those features are. So
Yes, yeah, I do want to say this is a great tool, but it does have some potential pitfalls if you're not careful with it. So we'll end with that note and watch our next video, and we'll talk about some of those pitfalls. But overall, this is a great tool for people that are administrating a system, especially a large system.
yeah,
Many people with permissions. So yeah, I'm looking forward to using this, but again, use it with caution, and we'll see everybody next time. And don't forget to visit our YouTube channel and to subscribe, to like our videos, and to add comments so we can hear what you like about our videos, what you'd like to see. And with that, we'll see everybody in 2 weeks.
see you later. So if I go to this patron is on list number 7, and list number 7 is tied to my technical services patron. So if I go to set permissions in this patron, it didn't work. Why didn't it work?
Do the mapping for that real
For
quick.
that list?
Yeah.
So this is list number 6.
1712, I think it was. Was it 12 or 11?
It doesn't really matter. 7th and 11th.
Okay, so let's look at that.
Is that patron thing? Now it's working. Did I use the wrong number?
I think you were using 12 before.
For fuck's sake. Do we want to start all over again?